Welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 rejuvenation procedures performed. I'm an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses as well, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the world's top proactive aging podcasts, and much, much more. Learn more at rachelvarga.ca and enjoy today's episode. Welcome, everybody, to today's live recording here on the Rachel Varga podcast. Before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell so that you know when I go live next. We are going to be diving into the future of controlling our aging process through sophisticated testing. We're going to talk about gut testing, blood sample testing, and what we can do through lifestyle modifications to help ourselves age impossibly well, literally from the inside out. I want to warmly invite you all to be active in the comments section here on Facebook, YouTube. Ask questions as we move through today's episode. Let me introduce you to our wonderful guest here, who's the CTO of Viome, which is one of the leading test kits, in my honest opinion, who is just making waves in the space of health and wellness and aging optimization. So we have Guru Banavar joining us today, who's the CTO of Viome. Guru is driven to develop and apply deep science and technology innovations to solve the big challenges of humanity, especially in health and education. He has founded many successful initiatives and is known for his work on host microbiome molecular data analysis, IBM Watson AI systems, smarter cities, services innovation, mobile computing, and distributed systems. He has a PhD in computer science and an MBA accelerated. Guru is the founding CTO of Viome Incorporated, where he leads AI and co-leads clinical research. Viome offers deep insights into health and disease using host and microbiome gene expression and provides very precise food and supplement recommendations to deter chronic diseases and, of course, slow down our aging process. That's what we all want. That's why you all are here. Guru's focus is on analyzing large host microbiome gene expression data sets from blood, stool, saliva, and other samples, and discovering biomarkers and identifying therapeutic targets from clinical research studies targeting metabolic, gastroenteritis, gastrointestinal autoimmune, neurological disorders, as well as cancer. He led the development of a first-of-a-kind saliva-based early detection system for oral and throat cancers using host microbiome gene expression, which won FDA's designation as a breakthrough device. Until April 2017, Guru was a global VP and chief science officer at IBM and a member of IBM CEO's top executive team. Throughout his IBM career, he developed and commercialized a range of advanced technological solutions in multiple industries and helped build multiple successful businesses. As the founding VP of the Watson AI research team, he led a team of hundreds and collaborated with leading universities. We're talking MIT, RPI, UC, UCSD, etc., to create AI systems that exceed human abilities, but also augment human expertise in every domain, from healthcare and education to finance and law. Guru is a recognized leader who delivered the 2017 Turing Lecture and has spoken on prestigious stages, including the Nobel Prize twice, the Aspen Ideas Festival, the Milken Conference, and President Obama's Frontier Conference. Recent talks include the National Academics of Science, Precision Medicine World Conference, and Exponential Medicine. His awards include a Leadership in Technology Management Award and a National Innovation Award from the President of India. He has served on NY Governor's Commission, New York Governor's Commission for State Resiliency, and was an elected member of the IBM Academy of Technology. He has published extensively and holds more than 35 US patents. His work has been featured in major international media, including the New York Times, The Economist, The Wall Street Journal, BBC, and NPR. Welcome, Guru Banavar from Viome. It's great to have you here on the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Rachel. This is great to be here, and I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's just jump right into it. What got you interested in, health optimization and Viome? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into this field?
Well, yes. First of all, thank you very much for that great introduction. Actually, this is kind of the long form of my introduction, which I hadn't myself heard for a long time. So, thank you very much for that very good background setting. But one of the things that you mentioned in that background was that I was working on a number of different AI-driven solutions to some very important key problems at the IBM Watson group. And it was actually one of the best jobs I've had. And the only thing that could get me out of that job into a brand new job was the excitement of something like Viome. I think the potential for changing the trajectory of humanity through the right kind of health and the right kind of insight into our biology is unparalleled with Viome. And the way I look at it is, there's a tremendous amount of biological complexity within each and every one of us, and we need to understand what's going on in your biological processes. And Viome is very uniquely situated to get there with the kind of testing we do, with the kind of analysis we do, with the data that we generate from your biology. And that was to me, an opportunity of a lifetime. So that's how I, got into Viome, and I was very privileged to be joining a bunch of really world-leading people, entrepreneurs, and scientists in Viome to um, together solve, one of, I think, or maybe I should say, the most important problem of the 21st century, which is that of chronic disease. This chronic disease, 50% of the population of the world has chronic disease, and we need to find a way to get to the bottom of it. And we believe that in Viome, we have the ability to get there. So it couldn't be more exciting for me than that.
I love that. And what I am looking forward to kind of bringing out from you and helping everybody tuning in to understand is how we can utilize the Viome test kit. We're talking the gut intelligence, the health intelligence test kits. This is my second round going through the test kits. And
Mhm.
it's funny, when I was doing my questionnaire for the second time around, yes, I have absolutely noticed some gut improvements. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties of what that is, but I
Mhm.
mean, the bottom line,
Mhm.
everybody asked me, Rachel, what do I need to eat to have clear skin? Right? What do you eat for clear skin? Well, it doesn't matter what I eat because my genes are different than yours. And also the epigenetics are different than yours, but we can change how our genes express themselves, which
Yeah,
is what we're going to talk about, and how we can optimize our aging process through test kits like this. And just so
exactly.
everybody knows, you guys can learn more about Viome and order your test kit. The URL is down below, and use promo code VARGA10 for 10% off of your health intelligence test kit. I recommend getting the gut intelligence test kit too. Get those two. Those are definitely pretty amazing. So we got the CTO from Viome here, the chief technical officer. Now let's get technical. Guru, do our genes say how we will age, or can we tweak our bodies so that we express a different aging path and enhance our aging process from the inside out through the foods we eat and how we live our lives?
So the answer is absolutely yes. Um, but I need to be a little more precise and say that it's your gene expression that says how we will age, not just your genes. Not, in other words, it's not your DNA, but it's your RNA, right? So just to be clear about it, the DNA is more like a blueprint of what is possible in your life, and it stays the same from the time you were born till the time you die. But your gene expression, or the RNA, is what happens when you are exposed to your environment and when you do all the things you do in your daily life, your lifestyle, your habits, your sleep patterns, your travel. All of those things impact what kind of genes express themselves. And what you eat is one of the most important things of how your genes are expressed. And as you know, there's 22,000 genes in your genome, and the biggest environmental factor that those genes get exposed to is the microbes. Now, the microbes are all around us. They're in our environment around us, but even more importantly, they're inside you. You're actually hosting a lot of microbes, right? When I say microbes, I mean bacteria, which are commensal. It could be a number of different archaea, fungi, it could be viruses. They're all in our body all over the place. And so when you look at how our genes express themselves, they're in fact reacting to this environment that we've created around ourselves, right? So in terms of how we age, the kinds of genes that express themselves as you age changes quite a lot. Now, in fact, the patterns of gene expression can tell us a lot about a person's age. In fact, it can tell us a lot about a person's health overall. For example, right, your immune cells express themselves in a particular way, and there are some things that get stronger, and there are some things that get weaker as you age. Your metabolism genes express themselves differently as you age. There's some things that express stronger, there's some things that express weaker. So there are patterns for this process of gene expression. So what we can do is essentially look at the patterns of gene expression within age groups. So for example, I could look at all of the gene expression patterns within people who are 20s, in their 20s, and gene expression patterns for people who are in their 30s, and people who are in their 40s, people in their 50s and 60s, and so forth. So for every age, I can look at a large population and say, what is the typical gene expression pattern for that age group? And so when a new person comes in, I can compare their gene expression pattern to all of these different age groups for whom we already have learned the gene expression patterns. And your gene expression pattern could be similar to a gene expression pattern of people who are either younger or older than yourself. So your real age may be, for example, 53 years old, but your gene expression patterns could be something like a 46-year-old looks like. Well, that would be the ideal, wouldn't it? That your gene expression patterns are looking very much like people who are younger than you.
Yes.
Um, and so when you can determine that, you can do something about it, right? So let's say you're a 53-year-old person, and let's say your gene expression pattern, in some cases that can look like somebody who's maybe potentially older than you, right? Let's say it looks like somebody who's like 56 years old instead of a 53-year-old. Now, can you do something about it? Yes, you can. One of the reasons you can do something about it is because the microbiome which is inside you is highly malleable, right? You can in fact change your microbiome so much more easily than your genes from your human genome, because your human genome is something that you're born with, right? But your microbiome is something that you develop on your own environmental exposures and your habits. So you can change your environmental exposures, you can change your habits, you can sleep better, you can eat better, you can travel better, you can do all those kinds of things. And that's actually one of the ways in which you can change the patterns in your body to be like that of a younger person potentially. And so all of these factors I think are together called epigenetics. These epigenetics can be impacting your human gene expression as well as your microbial gene expression, which is in your body. And the two of them together can definitely make you feel like and look like and act like a younger person. So that's kind of the objectives that we are trying to get to with this biological aging insight that we provide using the Viome kit. So just to kind of wrap that up, if you get a Viome kit today, especially the Health Intelligence Kit, which, by the way, is the best version of the kit, or the most complete functionality of all the insights that we offer. If you get that, you end up being able to see your biological age, which could be different than your chronological age. And we also give you several recommendations of how to optimize your health and potentially change your biological age, hopefully for the better. So that's kind of how we got to this whole point about how gene expression can definitely say what your inner age is, and how you can then tweak it to modify your aging process.
Yeah, so I was taking some notes while you were chatting there, and
Cool.
you
That's very
said
good.
something that was really interesting. We are a host. I mean, we're in a meat suit, right? Basically, we're walking around in a meat suit. We are a host for trillions of microorganisms. So let me ask everybody here, what kind of host are you for those trillions of microorganisms? Are you treating those little, living organisms in you well? Are you feeding them well? Because you know what? If you aren't, they're going to kind of flip the script on you. You're going to get brain fog. You're going to age faster. You're going to have gut disturbances. You're going to have skin disturbances. So this is different than just like looking at ourselves as a meat suit. It's like, really, how can we feed all those trillions of like little tiny organisms inside us to work to our benefit? And in a future episode, we're going to be diving into, and I'm going to be revealing my personal biological versus chronological age. So stay tuned. That is going to be a really fun one. But also, don't forget that when we're talking about optimizing our body, mind, spirit, energy for a higher level of beauty, higher level of radiance, that's why you all are tuning in here on the Rachel Varga podcast. This is actually a key element. And I will share, Guru, that when I employed my first initial gut intelligence test recommendations, so I was following my superfoods, I was following the foods that were right for me, I certainly noticed improvements in my skin. My body was dealing with inflammation a lot better. I don't burn as fast. I don't have as much red acne scarring. Say, for example, I burn my arm or my hand when I'm curling my hair, that redness is going away faster than ever. So
Wow.
that's kind of like the practical benefits to paying attention to what's going inside, what's going on inside. So how can we capitalize and harness the power of technology? We got the CTO from Viome here. Let's get into the depths here. How can we harness technology to allow us to optimize our aging process? Because this is the future of aging, guys.
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Rachel. So, as I was saying in the last segment, biology is really an information process. Let's put it that way. So there's inputs to your body, that comes from your environment, your lifestyle, your habits. There's a process that happens in your biology, which is how all of these environmental factors are metabolized and processed by your organism. And then there are outputs, which are the metabolites that come out and the functions that your body performs and so forth. So it's in some sense, it is an information processing system. So when you think about biology as an information processing system, what you can do is to understand, number one, what exactly is your biology doing as an information process. And then you can try to figure out how you can modify that information process. So that's kind of the root of how we understand biology in Bio. How do we get the insight into your biology? We take your samples. It could be your stool sample, your blood sample, your saliva sample. We process that through our lab and we generate data from those samples. So the kind of data that we generate represents what's going on in your body, like in your human cells, which genes are being expressed, which genes are not being expressed, and also what's going on in your microbiome, which are the genes of your bacteria and your viruses and your archaea and fungi. What are the organisms that are active, not just the ones that are present, but the ones that are active, and what are the ones that are not active in your microbiome. So we take the data from that lab processing of your samples, and then we do an advanced machine learning analysis of this. Now, this is the power of technology, so to speak. So we are going to get into artificial intelligence, and we are going to do a whole range of algorithms in machine learning to understand, for example, what are those patterns I was talking about for different age groups. So how do the patterns of your entire molecular system on the microbiome side and on the host side look like when you are 46 years old or 53 years old, and so on and so forth? That whole process is where we apply machine learning and artificial intelligence. And because we are able to create that model, so in some sense, what we're thinking, what you should be thinking about is we create a sort of a digital representation of your biology. And that is what we call this model. And that model is created through machine learning. Once we have that model, then we can say, okay, now that I have this model in a computer, how can I modify that model so that you can get a better health outcome? So, for example, if your process for producing metabolites like anti-inflammatory metabolites like short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which is a very classic metabolite that everybody understands as an anti-inflammatory metabolite. If we see that those metabolites are not being produced by your digital model, which is a representation of your biology within a computer, that's the big big data and the technology that we use in Viome, then we can say, if I gave you a way to produce more butyrate by either feeding those bacteria that you already have that can produce butyrate, or potentially by adding new bacteria through probiotics and increasing the number of organisms that can produce butyrate, then potentially you can reduce the inflammation. So because these are anti-inflammatory metabolites, and as a result of that, you will have the right kinds of microbiome changes. Your microbiome can come back into balance. And as a result of that, your patterns may look more like that of a younger person. And so you can change your aging process. So that's kind of more or less how we do the technological, let's say, methodology, if you will, for taking your sample, turning that into data, turning that into a model, and then changing that biological process through these supplements that can potentially change your metabolism and your microbiome processes so that you can change your biology and feel better about yourself.
I loved hearing you explain the input and output. I've never heard anybody talk about it this way. So, your input, again, just to reiterate, is going to be your environment, it's going to be your air quality, your food, all of that, like products you're putting on your skin. Because if those products are disrupting your microbiome and
Yeah.
leading to inflammation, that's not going to be a good thing. So, stick with me. I've got you. And your output is really when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you take a look at your skin, your output is going to be what your skin is displaying to you. If your skin is displaying hyperpigmentation, a lot of sunspots, melasma, things like that, or diffuse redness, irritation to the eyelashes or the lash line, the scalp, the skin, those can all be output messages. So if you are going down that path of, I got some skin stuff happening, my aging process, I'm starting to notice it, like crepey skin, laxity, that can be related to a number of different processes like hormones. But honestly, in my expert conversations, you'll want to look at your gut health first, because that's one of the first points for mediating hormone rebalancing and fertility and all sorts of stuff. So, why don't we get into some of the sort of like technical parts of actually doing this test? Let me just walk you through what it's like, everybody. You're going to order your test kit at viome.com, use promo code VARGA10 for a special discount and savings, and that helps to support me on the show here as well. And you're going to get this little box. And in the box, why don't we show everybody? Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Yes.
Perfect. So in the box, this is what it comes as. It's very pretty.
Looks cool.
You're,
Yeah.
you're going to have a couple of boxes in here. And now my box is empty because I've already done my test kit. And if you're watching this on Facebook and YouTube, you're going to actually be able to see it. If you're listening on the podcast, go switch over to Facebook and YouTube so you can see what it looks like. So we have our gene expression box here. So that's where you're going to be using the lancets to prick your finger and create a blood sample. And then you're going to put it into some tubes. I helped my hubby. So it's kind of fun if you guys can do this, partners, do it together. And then the gut intelligence portion here is where you're going to put a collection sample harness essentially over your toilet. And then when you go to the washroom, you're going to take a scoop of your stool, put it in a little container, shake it up, just follow the instructions, and then you're going to send it away. It's really easy to do. And that's what these test kits are like. You're either taking a saliva, a blood, or a stool sample, and then you send it off for analysis. And it's so easy to integrate the recommendations. And I've been doing it very consciously over the last number of months since I did my first one. So now what I'm doing is I've retested to see if the modifications that I've made on my epigenetics have made an improvement. So I've changed my input in an effort to improve my output. This is a very sophisticated way of doing it. This is different than listening to an influencer say, this is the gut lifestyle, skin optimization type of diet. You really want to get more specific and test and not guess in the whole space of aging and diet optimization. It's super sophisticated now. So that's what it looks like. You're doing some measurements of your waist and your hips. It's nothing to be intimidated about. Anybody can do these test kits. And my husband, who'd never done one before, it was a piece of cake for him. He didn't have any questions for me, but I did help him with the Lancets there. But it really wasn't a big deal. You send it off in the mail. You get your report on your cell phone. You can get those food recommendations and review them on the go. So say you're picking out what you're going to eat at a restaurant, no problem. You can just bring up your superfoods. You can avoid your avoid foods and things like that. I mean, it's so easy. So why don't you tell us a little bit, Guru, about the differences between the gut intelligence test and the health intelligence test? What do they both look at? Should we get both?
So, Rachel, first of all, I think you said it extremely well, that the kit is for everybody. It's not for any specialist of any kind. It's for everybody, and everyone can do it. And it's super easy to do. And it's, I think, the most, I would say, personalized of all the tests that you can potentially get. Because your stool gives us a view of your gut in a better way than anything else. In fact, it's sort of like a little bit of a mirror, right? It's sort of like, you can see yourself by seeing what's going on in your gut. You see inside yourself, if you will. And it's very different. Two people are very different from each other in terms of their gut activities. Right? You almost cannot find two individuals on this planet who have the same gut activity. So we are all individuals. We're all different. So you cannot have a one size fits all approach to this kind of aging process and beauty and health process. It has to be done on a precise individual level. So that's the first test. The second test is the blood or the human gene expression test. So your blood also is very different between any two individuals, because even though we may share a lot of the genomes between any two individuals, the genes that are expressed depends on your unique lifestyle. And so it is very important for us to be able to tell what's going on in your human body and human cells and what's going on in your microbial environment or ecosystem, right? So these are the two main tests. The health intelligence kit is really the combination of the two, just like Rachel described just now. The gut intelligence is only your stool test, and it only tells you about what's going on in your gut. But the health intelligence is telling you the two halves of the story, what's going on in your microbiome in the gut and what's going on in your human part of your biology. So the two are combined together in the health intelligence test. So the way I would put it is, if you have to buy one, you should get the health intelligence test, because it combines both of those tests, and it tells you the most information of your entire biology, because it's saying what's going on the host side, meaning your human side, and what's going on in your microbiome side, and how the two are interacting with each other.
You know, the astronauts are doing this, and if I've learned anything through air quality optimization, your food optimization, your supplement optimization, not to mention Viome has precision supplements. So if you're really wanting to go the astronaut route, you can do this test kit and actually get some supplements made to order. It's really cool because you can waste a ton of time and money going through the different diet programs out there when really, honestly, just test for it. This is the way of the future. Don't you love that? How the different, because we know
Absolutely.
the founder of Viome, Naveen, he's big into space. He's got his book Moonshots. He's a dreamer. He loves thinking big. And when we want to be, our best version ourselves, why not harness some of this amazing technology that's literally at our fingertips? But I love the idea of the stool sample, literally taking a snapshot of what's going on in your gut at that moment. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
All right. So, how do samples from multiple body sites, we're talking gut, which is going to be stool, mouth, which is saliva,
Yeah.
blood, which will be just like a little prick on your finger, and then you're depositing the sample into a tube or a piece of paper. I've done a number of different test kits. I really like the Viome one, it's really easy to use. But how do all of these different multiple body site samples add up to create a full picture of an individual?
Yeah, so Rachel, we have a very complex biology. There's a lot of things going on in your body, right? There's all the gut processes we've talked about. Your circulatory system is taking a lot of different messages from one part of your body to another part of your body, and it expresses the right kind of genes depending on the environment, as we talked about. Your mouth is in fact also a very good mirror into what's going on in an important part of your system, the oral cavity. But think of it like a body is like a donut. There is your entire gastrointestinal system, which is the inner hole of the donut, and then there's all of this additional surrounding stuff that is your entire body that you can capture through the blood. So it's basically by looking at the saliva, the stool, and the blood, you essentially see the top of the tube, the bottom of the tube, and all the stuff around the tube. So it's essentially your entire body that we can get a good level of visibility into by looking at these different body sites. Now, we could also look at many other things, and we will, in fact, start doing that in the future. So, for example, we could do a vaginal test to check for female health and see what the impact is on the rest of the body. We can look at many different types of swabs, like a throat swab, for example, or nose swab, and so on and so forth. So there's more specialized things that we could do to get an even bigger picture. But the three most important body sites are, like I said before, the top of the tube, the bottom of the tube, and around the tube, which is captured through the stool, the blood, and the saliva samples, which are the three main samples that Viome is going after right now.
And one of the other things I want everybody to be aware of is the concept of privacy. So when you're sending off a sample with some of these companies, there's been a big issue in the past with privacy concerns. All you want to do is just ask that your sample be de-identified,
Yeah.
and it's something that you are able to do with Viome, which is great. So why don't you just share what that is really like? How do we know that our samples are private? Because in the past there's been a big issue, and I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of privacy as much as possible.
Oh, Viome takes privacy extremely seriously. So the first thing we've done is ensure that all our samples are de-identified. There's in fact a firewall between any personally identifiable information, which is only accessible to a small number of people in order to get to customers and so on and so forth. But all the processing that happens on the other side of the firewall is entirely anonymized. So you don't have any information that is for a given individual. So there's complete privacy happening on this other side of the firewall, and there's a complete blocking of information between the two sites. And the other thing I also want to mention is that any data that we transmit or store is encrypted, right? Which means it's just created and sent or stored in such a way that somebody who's just an observer is not able to figure out what's going on. So it's completely stored and sent on the wire using encryption mechanisms. So given those two mechanisms, I believe that we are state of the art in terms of privacy, and in terms of all the regulations and all the concerns that people have. I believe we are on top of all of that.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering that because, consumer beware. Some of these test kits out there are just data
Yeah.
mining. And you know that I'm doing my best here to keep you all on the straight and narrow with the test kits that I do, that I trust, that I love to follow and analyze my markers. And I cannot wait to go through my retesting results and see if the changes, which I know because physically my output is telling me things are better, but I'm so excited to learn about my inner biological age. So, why don't we
Absolutely.
talk about how we get that kind of data? How do you view the individual and the population and then put that data together for analysis? Because I'm assuming this is how you figure out the biological versus the chronological age. And y'all know you should be expecting my biological age to be younger than my chronological age, because if it isn't, there's some things that I got to do, and you'll help
Abs-
me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like the idea of epidemiology, right? Or any sort of analysis of the population that may have certain conditions. That is a pretty standard practice in medicine and in science, right? So the idea that because we have a very large population of customers, so currently we have almost 300,000 samples in Viome. That's a very large population. And because we have such a large population, we are able to pick out the statistical patterns that are within many different subgroups of people. One of the examples I gave before is, a particular age group, right? So if I take people who are 53 years old, we know that there are certain patterns of your molecular gene expression. And so we are able to pick that up from the population. You don't get that from one individual or a few individuals, but when you have 10,000 or 20,000 people of a given age, then you see that the normal patterns that our machine learning can pick up is pretty reliable because of the size of that population, right? So that's a reliable thing. So if you add one or two more or 100 more or even 1,000 more, that pattern is pretty stable. So we have essentially mined or discovered that pattern, and it's sometimes known as a biomarker, right? So this is like a signature of a molecular system, and that gives you the kind of the standard pattern for a given population. Now, if a new person comes in, then you can compare that new person's molecular pattern to the existing molecular signatures that we've already found for various situations, whether it's an age or it is a particular condition in your body. Like, for example, a lot of people complain about abdominal pain and other kinds of gastrointestinal distress, or digestive symptoms and so on and so forth, which has an impact on everything else, including skin health, that you talk about, Rachel, right? So when a new person comes in, we can compare their molecular data of an individual to the population's molecular signature. And that comparison tells us how close or how far you are from the optimal portion of that signature. And that's how we determine the difference between an individual and a population, and tell you what could be your differences and how you can make your particular issues potentially go away by following the specific recommendations that we give, which, by the way, are not only available digitally, but also available physically through a supplement box that you can get every month at your doorstep.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned biomarkers. So we're looking at biomarkers to compare an individual to a population to see where they're at. You get this really cool wheel of score. So, for example, when I first did my gut health score, I was in like the high 30s. I was below average. That
Mhm,
gutted me, no pun intended, because I felt like I was eating all the right foods. I was eating healthy foods, but guess what? They were not right for me.
mhm,
So Viome has literally changed the way that I look at eating, and my skin has gotten a lot better. I tolerate being in the sun better, which shows me that my output, I'm better able to deal with inflammation. And we
Mhm.
know that inflammation is technically inflammaging. Now, the other thing that I really like about Viome is that Viome is wanting to help humanity out as a whole, right? And the really interesting thing about this is the concept of signaling. So, say there is something in our environment that is actually affecting portions of the population for whatever reason, that's called signaling. And then we can do things to modify and counteract what those signals might be doing and showing up. So, can you expand on how Viome really is helping and is wanting to propel humanity to become a little bit more advanced, to be able to circumvent some of the environmental triggers that may in fact be aging us and helping us, help us feel better, look better, be healthier?
Yeah, my personal belief is that our potential is unlimited as humanity. And I think we need to discover what are the factors that are making us have chronic disease or making us age the way we do. I do believe that in the next few decades we will find the mechanisms underlying chronic disease, mechanisms underlying aging, the mechanisms underlying cancer and all of these other diseases, and we will be able to find interventions that can normalize or reverse the processes that contribute to chronic disease, aging, and cancer. We've already started finding them. So I spoke about the biomarkers, right? So once you discover a biomarker, then you know where you want to influence and impact your biology, right? And you can do that. Ideally, you want to prevent, getting anywhere close to a disease biomarker, right? So you want to not even go there. But even when you're healthy, right, you want to delay your aging as much as possible. So one of the things that, it's interestingly, one of the things that we found in our aging research, we did an entire study with more than 100,000 people to check these uh, molecular signatures for different ages through machine learning. One of the things we found was that people who were on certain kinds of diets were systematically having a lower biological age compared to their chronological age. Isn't that interesting? So, for example, people who are on a plant based diet consistently had a lower biological age compared to their chronological age. People who were not, who were on very heavy meat based diets were actually having a higher biological age compared to their chronological age. So that's an interesting observation at a population level about the impact of diet on your aging process. So if you are able to enhance your lifestyle factors that are lowering your biological age, like for example following the right kinds of diets, as we've discovered in this study, and we published this, you can look it up. um, then you are going to be over time able to impact the aging processes in your body, right? So the same thing with other kinds of conditions, whether it's digestive or mood conditions or sleep conditions. All of those things can be impacted by understanding what these biological processes are doing and how you can change it with your lifestyle. So at the end of the day, how can we serve humanity? We can serve humanity in all respects, right? With this health, wellness, aging, by helping people see what can make their chronic diseases not even approach them, right? So just get away from it, prevent it. And if you can predict something is happening, maybe that'll be a motivator for you to change your lifestyle and get away from the diseases or the rapid aging processes. And I believe that we are already on our way to get there. And in the next few years, I believe we'll be able to impact pretty much everybody on the planet, because we're getting a test which is easy for everybody to use, not expensive. We want to get it in the hands of every person in every country. We already have something like 75 countries, people from 75 countries who are customers of Viome. So we want to get it throughout the globe, and we want to make sure that everybody, regardless of your background and your different environments, you are able to get the Viome test, and you are able to understand your biology better. That's how we want to serve humanity.
Yeah, and I'll echo, it is a very affordable test kit. When I initially interviewed Naveen Jain, he said that these kits were previously like $2,000 to $3,000 kits. Now they're just
Exactly.
a couple $100s.
Yeah.
So way to go to make it more affordable and accessible than ever. So you no longer have to see a practitioner to
Yeah.
get really specific food testing. You can actually just order it from the comfort of your own home and analyze it yourself. And just a disclaimer, what we talk about here isn't medical advice. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. This is for educational purposes only. I would like to end with this. My personal experience with the Viome results, the whole process, is that it really helped me identify areas I needed to pay attention to when they were yellow flags before they became orange flags and red flags. Because honestly, I consider myself super duper healthy, follow a really healthy diet, but I was eating the wrong foods for me and it was actually harming me. So thank you so much for helping to create a product that allows me to feel better, look my best, show up in my best form, body, mind, spirit, energy with a greater output. So thank you. And the last question I have for you here, Guru, how does Viome include machine learning and pathway analysis? What does this really look like from the CTO perspective? And why are they
Yeah.
essential to deciphering human biology?
Yeah, I've already touched on many of these points in my previous comments, but just to summarize, um, the complexity of our biology is very difficult for a human brain to understand because there's just so many things going on and they're all interacting with each other and so on and so forth. But we thankfully have an advanced technology now called machine learning, which is able to take massive amounts of data, analyze it, put it all together, and create these patterns and models of what is actually going on in the biology. So that's why we think machine learning is a great way to understand the complexity of biology. Second thing about pathway analysis is that there's a lot of scientific knowledge in the literature that's already available today. For example, we know the kinds of pathways that provide anti-inflammatory metabolites. We talked about short chain fatty acids before. There's many other things that we know about the biological pathways today. So we take that knowledge and we also incorporate that into our system along with analyzing the data with machine learning. So the two things we do, the machine learning and the pathway analysis, together gives us the most state-of-the-art platform to decipher human biology. Like I said, we create a sort of a digital persona or digital biology of every individual, and we are able to then look at that digital representation and ask how do we optimize that in the best possible way. So that's the way in which we decipher your biology through your samples. The more samples you provide, the better, not just the different body size like we discussed, also the number of different longitudinal samples that you provide over time, right? Every 6 months, every 9 months, and so forth. So if you can keep getting tested, the system of Viome's AI is able to understand what is your best health condition, your best biological state, and tell you the most relevant food as well as supplements and lifestyle habits that will optimize your biology and of course your aging processes. So that's how we decipher human biology.
Wonderful. We had a chance to answer all the questions that came through. So thank you everyone who tuned in live here on the Rachel Varga podcast. Guru, it's been great having you on the show. I will echo the importance of retesting to make sure the modifications that you're doing are actually working. And every time you're sending your test kits in, you're just getting more and more specific with your information. If you're a doctor or a nurse or functional medicine practitioner, you got to do this test kit and really take a look at their questionnaires that they're using. My understanding through Naveen Jain is that they were actually developed with the Mayo Clinic, and it's the best health questionnaire that I've ever seen with anything. So way to go, Viome. And as a thank you for everybody tuning in here, be sure to use Varga10 as promo code for $10 off of your health intelligence test kit. The direct link to get it is in the show notes below. Guru Banavar, it's just been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, and I'll be sure to have you back on at some point, and we'll do some updates.
It's been my pleasure, Rachel. Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening. And hopefully, we'll get to help you out with optimizing your biology through some of our tests. Please get your kit today.
Perfect. So test and don't guess. That's the theme, in case you haven't noticed here on the show, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and we'll see you next time here on the Rachel Varga podcast.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.